Two of the biggest American chip makers and one of the biggest rivalries in the CPU market. Chances are, if you have a computer, you either have an Intel or AMD chip in it. In this video, we are going to look at how each of these companies got to where they are, and how AMD went from underdog to being top dog.
For the 718th time, we present Camaro versus Mustang.
Many of us rely on them to get around, and I always wonder, you probably do too, which one is better?
It's just one offensive in its battle with rival Pepsi for hearts and taste buds.
Before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe to support the channel. Intel and AMD are the biggest competitors in the world of central processing units, or CPUs. The CPU in a machine is basically the brain of the computer and is responsible for controlling the rest of the system. The overall performance of the CPU has a massive impact on the speed and reliability of a computer or server, so choosing the correct CPU for your needs is a very important choice. As people want faster and faster computers, Intel and AMD have been constantly upgrading the speeds of their CPUs. Also, if you decide to get either Intel or AMD, the other components on your computer also have to be compatible with either chips, so you really can't mix and match what brands you want to go with. Both Intel and AMD have been around for decades, but Intel is slightly older. Bob Noyce and Gordon Moore founded the company back in 1968. It wasn't until 1974 that Intel made the well-known 8080 processor. This set the scene for the 86 processors, and for nearly 30 years, these processors were the foundation of desktop PCs. Renaming the 86 brand as Pentium helped Intel reach out and become a familiar name to the general population. This helped them acquire a market domination that they have to this date. For years, Intel continued to make solid decisions, emphasizing computing power. AMD was founded in 1969, just a year later than Intel, when co-founder Jerry Sanders was named as AMD's first president and CEO. AMD established its headquarters in Sunnyvale, California. Now, it's important to make a couple of distinctions between AMD and Intel as companies. First off, AMD by far is the smaller of the two companies. Second, AMD doesn't actually build their own chips. They design the chips but outsource the manufacturing. Meanwhile, Intel has over a dozen fabrication plants stretched around the globe in the US, Ireland, Israel, and China. This has been a recent positive for AMD though, because the manufacturer of AMD chips have been able to manufacture 7nm chips. This just means that the chips can have more processing power and faster speeds. Intel, on the other hand, has been struggling to achieve this, and they are still trying to get as much power out of their 10nm chips to keep up with AMD. Before this though, AMD was seen as the underdog, while Intel had over 80% market share. They were seen as the budget CPU and often had trouble with overheating issues on their CPUs. People were more familiar with the Intel name, and they were the go-to for CPUs. Intel was also manufacturing their own chips, while AMD was outsourcing their chip production. This gave Intel more control and was an advantage, as they could innovate faster than AMD. Today though, Intel is struggling to keep up with AMD's technology. They are having difficulties producing 7nm chips, while AMD has already been releasing chips that are 7nm. Intel has recently announced that their 7nm chip is going to be delayed, and they are actually looking to outsource the production of the 7nm chip, just like AMD, since they are struggling to produce their own. This is a big shift since Intel has always been the one that was ahead of AMD on technology. They also always had the upper hand on production, since everything was done in-house. Recently though, this advantage has become a disadvantage. The shift into 7nm chips is important because the chips use less material and in turn can be cheaper to produce. Also, the chips are faster compared to 10nm chips that Intel is currently using and trying to squeeze all the performance they can out of them. Intel has recently announced their earnings. While they beat earnings expectation, the news of outsourcing might be a sign that Intel's best days are behind them. After the news, Wall Street reacted and Intel's stock dropped 30%. And Intel's chief engineer is leaving the company because of the delay. Because of all the delays, companies like Apple have decided to make their own chips. This is a big deal because Intel's brand reputation is being tarnished from all these delays in production. Now people see outsourcing as a last-ditch effort to keep up with AMD. AMD, on the other hand, has been slowly gaining market share. After Lisa Su took over as CEO, AMD has been focused on engineering and innovating in chip technology. They have constantly been able to beat Intel chips on performance and production. AMD's stock price has more than tripled since Lisa Su has taken over. AMD also has been growing their data center market share and have been making chips specifically for data centers. They also have been producing faster and faster mobile and gaming chips. Both Microsoft and Sony use AMD for their gaming consoles. Although Intel is having a lot of missteps, they are still diversified in many different industries other than chips. They recently bought Mobileye, which is a driverless car technology company. Intel is also a lot larger of a company than AMD. Intel has a market cap of around $200 billion, while AMD has a market cap of around $80 billion. Once Intel deals with all these delays and they get back to what they do best, which is innovating, I think they can recover and continue to grow. As AMD's technology keeps getting better though, Intel really has to keep up with the competition now. We will see if they are able to keep their dominance in the processor market, or will AMD now be the new king of computing. And with that being said, as always, thanks for watching and don't forget to like and subscribe to see more videos.